Welcome to Short Couplet, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I am Adrian Fort, and we're here, as it is Monday, for another poetry discussion. I have new videos here on the channel every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Mondays are for poetry, but that's not all. I have a personal channel linked in the description below. On that channel, I have new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday as well. Over there, I do movie reviews. I do reviews of different nonfiction stories. I'm getting into music sort of stuff, it takes some time, okay? It takes some time, but I'm getting there. But today's poetry comes to us from Emily Dickinson, the complete poems of Emily Dickinson. The poem in question is number 660 on page 328, known by the first line, as Emily Dickinson poems are, because Emily Dickinson did not, in fact, title her poetry. The first line is, "'Tis good, the looking back on grief." The poem reads as such. "'Tis good, the looking back on grief, to re-endure a day we thought the mighty funeral of all conceived joy. To recollect how busy grass did meddle one by one, till all the grief with summer waved, and none could see the stone. And though the woe you have today be larger as the sea, exceeds its unremembered drop, their water equally." One more time, just so we've got it here. "'Tis good, the looking back on grief, to re-endure a day we thought the mighty funeral of all conceived joy. To recollect how busy grass did meddle one by one, till all the grief with summer waved, and none could see the stone. And though the woe you have today be larger as the sea, exceeds its unremembered drop, their water equally." Why, I think the obvious question is, why would we want to remember grief, especially a grief so great as that? We're not talking about any grief. We're talking about the grief that we thought the mighty funeral of all conceived joy. Well, if there is a grief so large as that, it means that you lost something central to you. There was something, some part of you, something which is no longer, whether that be a death, whether that be a dream which has been lost, whether that be whatever. A grief so large as that, so magnificent as that, means that there's some piece of you at stake. And by remembering that grief, we remember that thing. To remember the grief is to keep alive whatever that thing is which died, whichever that thing is which passed, whichever that thing is which is no longer. That is what grief is for. The middle stanza, "To recollect how busy grass did meddle one by one, till all the grief with summer waved, and none could see the stone." It's a bit troubling. This is obviously one of these easy poems from Emily Dickinson, right? One of these easy poems that we get from Emily Dickinson where we just look at, and it's fun to read like Dr. Seuss, and the point is as obvious as Hemingway, right? It's just out there on the page. Obviously, that's not correct. Emily Dickinson obfuscates things in such a way as to make them inaccessible, but not invisible. It's hard to get to, but it's there. You can see it, but you got to do some work at it. I think what's going on here is we're talking about re-enduring that day, going back to that day, that grief, the day which grief had struck us. To recollect how busy grass did meddle one by one, till all the grief with summer waved, and none could see the stone. The thing which died, all conceived joy died. So we had a funeral, right? That's what happens in the original stanza there. We thought that all joy that ever could be had passed, and so we had a funeral, and we erected a tombstone. And as the summer passed, no one was there to take care of the grass, and the grass obscured the stone. No one could see the stone behind the grass that grew and waved in front of it. So that's another barrier to our grief. But the third stanza, I think, is where this poem is made, is where I think this poem becomes useful, goes from being pretty words to poetry. Pretty words being something nice to look at, but poetry being something which is useful. Poetry being a tool that we can use in our daily lives. Is there such a thing in poetry? Of course. And in this poem, it happens to us in the third stanza there. The stanza there, and though the woe you have today be larger as the sea, exceeds its unremembered drop, their water equally. What we're doing here is twofold, I think. Obviously, on the very bottom level, what we're doing is we're comparing griefs, right? They're both water. But when we realize, I'm throwing all sorts of shit. When we realize that griefs are made of the same thing, what we are forced to realize is that we endured all the grief that we've seen to this day. We have endured all the grief that has happened to us. All the grief that we have endured has been passed through. And we're still kicking. We're still out there. We're still moving. We're still making moves. It is comparing the small griefs to the big griefs and saying that they are all made of the same thing. So, once you've gone through that big grief, you got through it. So these small griefs, you will get through them as well. It is a strange comparison to make in order to supply some bit of relief, but I think it does the trick. If you were to do this in the opposite, with joy, perhaps, there is some small joy. I don't know, I'm not good with joy. I'm not good with positive emotions, but imagine there was someone intuited a gift. I don't know if you've had those Coca-Cola with coffee. Those things are good, right? Someone just brought you one of those. That's a little joy, okay? You have a transcendent joy, say, finding love. When you get that little joy, it's not the transcendent joy, but they're made of the same stuff. So, remembering that with this little joy, looking up at the big joy, we can say, I feel connected to that joy. It is a strange way to think of emotion. Probably we should abandon all emotion regardless, because all it does is befuddle us. But when we remember that the small emotions can be attached to the larger emotions, we can use them to temper negative emotions or to embolden positive emotions, so that the small joy of waking up in the morning, insofar as you consider it a joy, the small joy of waking up in the morning can be connected to those larger joys of finding love, of having a child, getting married, whatever positive things people do, I don't know. So that every morning when you wake up, you start that positive roll going. Or when you suffer some small, little grief, you remember the big grief and you say, hey, that son of a bitch didn't kill me. What is this one going to do? So that's a little tool that we get from this poem. But I think the main payoff to this poem happens there. I'm going to read it one more time because I think it really is in there, and it's in there for a purpose. And though the woe you have today be larger as the sea, exceeds its unremembered drop, their water equally. Their water equally. Huh, okay. They're made of the same stuff. We made that point already. We've observed that. But what is that stuff? That stuff is water. What does water do? Water cleanses. Water cleanses. Oh no, I broke my pen, son of a bitch. It's cracked right through there. You see it? You can't see that. Don't lie to me. Anyway, it cleanses. Water cleanses. That's what, ow. I just pinched the shit out of myself. Water cleanses. Grief, in this case, is used to cleanse. How can that be? That is a strange thing to say. Well, we've already made the example, the observation, that big grief didn't kill us. What chance did that little grief have? Well, once we're through that, and the grief didn't kill us, what can an inconvenience do to us? The inconvenience can't kill us. We went through that big grief, and we got through that all right. Well, what about that bad day? That bad day is just a bad day. I woke up late. I didn't get to work on time. Boss is a bitch. Whatever it is. That's not going to kill us. We went through this, and it cleansed our soul. So I think that is what this poem, "'Tis good, the looking back on grief." Why is it good? Because it's cleansing. I think that is I am upset that I broke my pen. I think that is the ultimate point of this poem. So what looked like what looked like a harrowing experience that was this poem, right? You start reading these words and it's like, oh, half of them don't even make sense. What are we doing here? It becomes this little life tool by which we might get by. That is the joy of Emily Dickinson. That is all I have for this poetry discussion. I hope to see you next time for another poetry discussion. I've got new videos on the channel Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Mondays are for poetry, but I also have new videos on my personal channel Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, a link to which can be found in the description below. Go over there, follow me there as well.